Hello and welcome to today's web seminar, Marketing Automation and Lead Gen for Large Agencies or Agencies Trying to Get There and Become Larger. Before we begin, I'll briefly introduce today's speakers. First, my name is John Scranton. I'm an agency marketing expert. I was formerly a licensed agent, like many of you, for a top 100 agency, an MBA, and co-authored Sell More and Work Less. I also have written over 1,000 insurance marketing blogs and am considered to be an insurance marketing and lead gen professional. Our second speaker today is Allan Bloom. Allan's an author. He's also the founder of StartUpSelling. He was named to the Inc. 500 list in 2 consecutive years. He's written 2 books, Your Virtual Success, Sell More and Work Less. He's the creator of the Prospect Scorecard and has written over 150 insurance marketing articles and is an insurance email marketing expert. So today we'll be covering several different topics. To summarize, I'll share a few. Marketing automation and workflow for email drip marketing. We'll talk about sales funnel segmentation and email list building. We'll talk about how to integrate your digital marketing initiatives with lead gen and lead handling processes. We'll talk about appointment setting to improve producer performance, full motion graphic video and other types of dynamic content, and key performance indicators to measure what you're doing and determine your successes. So with that, Allan, if you'd like to begin by telling us about marketing automation for email drip marketing, we can get started.
Thank you, John, and we're really pleased to see so many people attending today. This webinar will last a half an hour, and there should be some important takeaways. Some of you may be very familiar with traditional email marketing. Some of you may have already started considering marketing automation and workflow. Some may not be clear on the difference. So let's start with that. Traditional email marketing is when you're just sending out 1 or 2 emails per month. Let's say you're sending out webinar invitations or you're sending out a newsletter, and that's going out to everyone, and the subject line and the message are all the same. Here's the monthly newsletter on various types of business and insurance topics, for example. If you're a trucking agency, it might be on CSA related topics, and if your benefits, it might be on compliance and Trump care and things like that. And everyone gets the same message. Though you can segment, it's a little more challenging with traditional email marketing, which is a little more campaign centric. So that's pretty traditional, and some fairly large number of agencies, 50% or more, might be using traditional email marketing. Marketing automation is a different animal. Marketing automation and workflow does a completely different thing. It's much more sophisticated. It uses dynamic content. It uses logic or branching. And if John Scranton, for example, if he was interested in cyber liability and he had clicked on a email that you sent on cyber liability, his next email might relate to cyber liability. And he may go into a workflow series about cyber liability insurance and other types of business insurance relating to that, business interruption insurance, for example, or articles that relate to that, or blogs. Whereas if I were also one of your prospects and I had clicked on something that inferred I was interested in workers' compensation, experience mod factors, and so on, I would go into a different workflow and receive completely different content than John would. And as you can see, that starts the cascade effect where these things can get very sophisticated and are invaluable as a nurturing tool. Now, sophisticated agencies are using both. They're using traditional email marketing and workflow, and we'll tie that back in together in a little while. Now, you can see at the top is a graphic of a marketing automation workflow. And you see a lot of branching going on. And the branching will move people around. If they say yes to a question or a radio button, or they click on a link, you move them into a different area of the workflow. If they say no, they'll go to a different area workflow. If they opt out, they loop around and may be sent into a different type of workflow, depending on the type of opt-out. And it gets very sophisticated very quickly, but it also gets highly personalized very quickly. You can really take somebody down a very specific path, improving your lead nurturing, and ultimate close ratios. Now down at the bottom, we have a breakout just to show you the branching and predicated upon yes or no, what might happen. And here, a yes would add to a workflow click list, and then an email is generated to anyone in that list. The next step is, would you like to schedule a meeting? And after that, the people, if they don't schedule a meeting, they move into a new workflow. And that's the idea, that you're moving people along in areas that are of high interest to them. You can segment extremely well. The workflow process for marketing automation is not only intricate and nuanced and sophisticated, it can be extremely effective because people are getting sort of exactly what they want in the process. Now, a few key things to take away with workflow. Customizable logic, which sometimes is referred to as branching, and from that branching you can generate dynamic content. So if you're thinking about all these boxes, you're probably starting to say, well, many of those boxes would want to have an associated content with that box. So if you have a branch and it says the person is interested in workers' compensation and they also click the button about cyber liability, well, now you want to be able to have content for those two things, and actually a series of content for those things. Because just because somebody reads an article on cyber liability may not say now they're ready to buy. However, after an article on cyber liability, an article on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and an article on ransomware, now they might be ready to have a meeting and saying, you know, I don't know why my other agent isn't talking about this. I really need to find out what's going on with this. My brother-in-law, true story, had a ransomware attack and had to take down his entire server and get it worked at, and it costs a lot of money to do that. So it's a unique experience for every single user, which sounds really challenging, but is also really effective. And the users could be prospects and clients. Suspects are handled differently, by the way. We'll talk about that in a minute. Usually it's prospects, clients, former clients, and multiple workflows are utilized as prospects enter and exit individual campaigns. So I know that's a lot, that's a fire hose there. There's a lot coming at you, but the reason the more sophisticated agencies use this is they tend to be larger, and they would have a department that handled this for them. Of course, smaller agencies can also outsource this if they don't have the staff internally to do it. Now, dynamic content. Well, what does that mean? Dynamic content, in a way, infers two things. One, it says that there's a lot of content, and there's varying types of content, and the content varies by topic. And two, the dynamic in that infers that John and I would receive not only multiple pieces of content, we would get different content because we're interested in different things. And that's the dynamic in dynamic content. So some examples of content up on the top left. These are startup selling examples. So for our examples, we might be sending somebody a blog on search engine optimization. We might be sending a video vignette, a whiteboard video, or a full motion video. This one's full motion on how a broker can grow. We might be sending an agent an infographic on because they're interested in infographics, and here's a sample infographic. Or we could use this potentially for video, the efficacy of video on a website. So when you're thinking of content for your agency, think video, which could be full motion graphic video. It could be whiteboard video. It could be a case study. It could be a white paper. An infographic like the one I'm showing you on the right, those could be really effective. Blogs are excellent fulfillment. We call this digital fulfillment. A published article can be a terrific fulfillment. You could publish it on eZine, by the way, and get SEO juice at the same time. And sometimes it could just be an offer, whether the offer is we have a unique way of approaching trucking insurance and safety and improving your CSA scores, or it could be we have a unique process to help you investigate your experience mod factors that can result in improvements and reductions in your workers' compensation or whatever it happens to be. So think of dynamic content. If you're limited in content, that is definitely solvable. So now we've talked about workflow, we've talked about content, we're going to now talk about segmentation and email list building, and we will loop back to the difference between dynamic workflow automation and traditional email marketing campaigns. So when it comes to sales funnel segmentation and traditional email marketing, you don't have to worry about it as much. You might have a few lists, you might have a suspect list, a prospect list, clients and former clients, but you would have much more sophisticated segmentation when it comes to your marketing automation. And it's both interesting and fun, and of course it could be a little challenging as well. So, suspects. Well, I tend to say that when it comes to suspects, I am more interested in having them warmed up and vetted to the point where I can say, you know, they're more of a prospect than a suspect. So imagine an email list that you have for your agency, and you're selling in New England, and you have a list of 15,000 suspects, and you have another list of 1,000 prospects. And these suspects, you've never really engaged in much conversation. They don't know you as well. You're trying to get your branding across. You're trying to get your message to them, and you're sending out campaigns. It might be webinar invitations. It might be the infographics. It might be, we have this great newsletter. Please opt in for that. Read my blog. Here, you know, and when somebody clicks on it, depending on what they're clicking on, you may move them into your prospect pool. They clicked on a blog about cyber liability. Great. They're opted in. They are interested in cyber liability insurance. And now you move them from the 15,000 suspects to become one of your 1,000 or 2,000 prospects, because now they're worth more investment of your time. They're worth the thought. You kind of have begun a digital relationship with them. You know they're interested in a certain type of product. So we tend to take suspects and say, use those in your traditional marketing engine and move your prospects into your marketing automation engine. Clients, of course, you would put in your marketing automation engine. If you were using that, former clients you would probably do as well. And you might also verticalize. You might take your list, and particularly with marketing automation, and split them into verticals: manufacturing and distribution, trucking if you targeted, construction, benefits, and so on. So how do you build these lists? Well, list building is sort of an art and a science that we have down there. In my opinion, every serious B2B agency, or every agency that has a significant portion of the business as B2B, should have every prospect that they want to sell to. Every single company in New England, if that's your area, in every single state of New England, within the target market, I'm selling to companies that are 5 million to 50 million, and I want to have all the key titles: CFO, CEO, CTO, if you're selling to them, VP of HR, CHRO, and so on. So you take your C-suite list, and you should have literally the contact information and email for every one of those, and you should be taking your message and bringing them to that. To do that, you collect emails. You have to be careful when you're procuring emails, because you have to follow canned spam and opt-in practices and get them to opt in. But literally, you should be working on that important digital asset and have a great email list, vetted, opted-in email list at your disposal, and then treat it very carefully. If you're procuring any emails, it has to be from a reputable source. You have to give people an opportunity to opt in and opt out. And of course, you should only be using business emails. So for your traditional marketing, you want that, as well as for your, because it's your complete suspect pool, as well as for your marketing automation. You want that. It's just smaller and better qualified. So if you don't have that list, that's something that you should be working on quickly, and you should be refreshing every year. And perhaps, John, you do a lot of work in this regard. Would you like to make some comments on this? We lost John.
I apologize. I was muted there.
There
I
you
had to
go.
unmute my line. But yes, we help many of our agency clients with the procurement of email list, and it's very challenging and very nuanced for the reasons Allan explained, that you need to not only find a reputable source, but once you receive these emails, treat them very carefully to make sure that the people will opt in and actually be willing to participate in your email initiatives. Depending on the industries that you're working in and the list sources that you're using, you may also receive a large portion of personal emails in the list that need to be treated very differently, if even used at all, than the business emails that Allan was talking about. So be careful with that. It can be a large pitfall in some industries, such as transportation. We work with many transportation agencies. As many as 50% of the emails on an email list will be personal emails. And typically in email marketing, you want to avoid personal emails if at all possible. So once again, a warning that both an art and a science to list building, and it's also very dangerous, if you will, can be an easy place to misstep and make a mistake. So with that, Allan, let's keep rolling.
So some takeaways today. There's new Canadian anti-spam regulations. So if any of you are emailing or doing any e-marketing to Canada, things are changing literally as we speak. In the United States, the CAN-SPAM regulations, contrary to what people think, don't say you cannot send an email to somebody you don't know. It has rules around sending emails to someone you don't know. Canada has just changed that, and it said you cannot send an email to somebody you don't know. So beware of that. If you have any Canadian emails in your current email databases, make sure that they have formally opted in or remove them, or you do have another option, which is to give a one-time shot to get them to opt in, explaining it clearly to them, and then if they don't, they should be removed. So remember that if you're doing any email marketing to Canada. Now, let's continue on and talk about the document lead handling process. Now, this is something, as you're spending the time investing in getting a really compelling ROI from your marketing automation and from your traditional email marketing, you should make sure that you have a tight, documented lead handling process. And we see many agencies don't. We help them with this because they haven't thought it through and say, well, when a lead comes in, what happens to it? What's the tracking system for it? How do we treat the lead when it comes in? Which producers do they go to, and how do we then follow up and measure the results? So if you haven't done this yet, big takeaway is the first thing you do, get off the phone and say, do I have a really great lead handling process? And if not, create a bulletized list of the steps that should be done in your agency for that lead handling process. Now, let's say you have a trucking specialty and you also have a benefits practice in your agency. So those are very different types of leads that come in, by the way. For example, benefits, you may have participating employees over 50 and under 50, and they go to two different producers. For trucking, you may have somebody who's going after owner-operators and somebody who's going after fleets 10 and above. And you want to handle both of those, all four of those lead types differently, and then put them into a tracking system. It doesn't have to be elegant. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. As a simple spreadsheet can suffice, but you do need to have that in place. And for basic training and alignment, you should be covering the key components of what happens with an incoming lead for your agency. So for example, do you have an elevator pitch? A lead comes in, you're going to have a discussion in a conference call. You have a process where first an email goes out offering perhaps some information to that prospect, which could be done in the workflow, by the way, or it could be done personally by the producer. You should have an elevator pitch. Here's what the producer says right off the bat. You should have in the call, in the conference call or meeting process, you should say, here's what we cover, here's the way we approach it, and you're going to have a different approach for an on-site meeting than you would for a web meeting. You should say, once done, here's how we follow up with those prospects after we have met with them. Here's when we determine if they go into the pipeline or into the active prospect pool, and also a process to follow up on no-shows. So there's a lot to it. It's a nuanced process, but you want to make sure you have it in place to close the loop, which is the final part of the process today. So as we go down now, we have a really nice cascade of events. In an ideal agency, we have two different marketing engines, one for suspects, which sends out emails twice a month, and one for active prospects, which is a marketing automation workflow, which is highly refined and highly targeted. And you're sending those emails out consistently every month, and you have leads coming in. And the lead could be in the form of A, it could be a form that they fill out, B, it could be clicks that are coming in that you're watching and measuring, C, it could be inbound calls, and D, it could be outbound calls by your producers or a telemarketing department or telemarketing outsource that's calling on the people who are interested to make appointments. So all of these things are now happening from this email marketing. And you want to close the loop. And you want to close the loop for some very important reasons. You want to create KPIs, which stands for Key Performance Indicators, for the following. How many leads are coming in every month or every week? How many of those move to quotes or proposals? Of those that move to quotes and proposals, what's the close ratio? Is it 10%? Is it 15%? Is it 5%? What's the revenue? And revenue is a really important one because you could do it two ways. You could say, here's the total leads coming in, here's the size of the account, here's the potential revenue from the account, and then you could also determine from that, are we closing mainly small accounts, are we average, or are we closing larger accounts? Because that can have a big difference in the way you're working your email marketing. Measure the ROI. We got a client recently that said, gee, I closed $90,000 in new commissions this month. Great. You know, is that happening every month? Is it happening once a quarter? Is it happening once every 6 months? So you want to measure that ROI, and you may want to segment that by office, producer, and program. Are we doing better with benefits? Are we doing better with our manufacturing niche? Are we doing better with trucking? And you want to do that for a couple of reasons. As you measure that, you may say, I'm just going to cull, I'm going to truncate a program. Benefits is going terribly. Manufacturing, distribution, and trucking is going fantastically. I'm going to invest more in them, or I'm going to change the messaging for benefits. Or I might have a producer that needs more help with benefits, or it might be more competitive, or I'm going to expand the area. Lots of different things you can do with those dials. You can turn those dials and make them more effective. But the mantra is measure, refine, and repeat. Measure, refine, and repeat. So as all of this is happening every month, you have a quick meeting. We do that, for example, with our clients. We meet with them monthly. What's working? What needs refinements? What should be added? Why is this producer crushing it? And this producer is struggling. All great things so that you have an effective marketing, email marketing, and workflow, hopefully, program. With that, John, let's go and now talk a little bit about assessing how to get started. So would you like to go through that?
Certainly, yeah. So whether you're a larger agency who's already doing some traditional email marketing, or maybe even dabbling in marketing automation, or a smaller agency trying to grow, considering either or both of those alternatives, what you need to do to get started or to take the next step is first assess the tools, time, and talent that you have internally. You'll often hear Alan and I use that catchphrase of tools, time, and talent, meaning the tools. Do you have a marketing automation solution? Do you have an email marketing engine? Do you have the time? Do you have people on your team who have the time to take this initiative on and execute well? And then most importantly, do you have the skill set? Do you have the people who know how to do this properly and effectively because it can be a significant investment that you don't want to hand to somebody who's not ready to take on. So assess the tools, time, and talent that you have in-house. Determine where you need help, what you can do internally, and what you need to outsource to a competent insurance marketing organization. So once you have that plan laid out, begin to review the target market or target markets that you want to attack. Different markets will need to be marketed to different ways, will require different types of traditional email marketing and different types of workflows with different content, different email frequency. Lay out your plan, map out that plan to determine the type of content you need to develop or procure and the frequency in which you'll be sending out that content. And then, of course, what calls to action and what follow-up procedures you'll be using to attack those people in a way that you know to be effective. Then you need to assess your lists. Allan spoke at length about all the different types of lists there are, the different types of lists you should have. Determine what you have so far. How many client emails do you have? How many prospect emails do you have? How many suspect emails do you have? And how many do you think you should have? If you have a target market of 10,000 companies, but you have 38 suspect emails, then you know you have a problem that you need to solve before you can effectively engage in this type of marketing automation. Determine your goals and objectives. Are you trying to improve retention? Are you trying to touch new prospects? Are you trying to cross-sell clients? Are you trying to do all of those things? Each one probably requires a different email marketing campaign and or a different marketing automation workflow. And then circling back to the assessment of tools, time, and talent, as well as your possible list needs, figure out what you can do internally and what you need to outsource to a company like StartUpSelling or another competent insurance marketing organization so that you can get started right away, because sophisticated agencies are already doing this and you want to continue to improve, stay competitive, or possibly become one of those larger, more sophisticated agencies in the near future. So now we'll move into a brief Q&A. We have a couple minutes left, and Allan, I see that we do have a few questions that have come in. The first one I'll pose to you. How many emails for suspects and prospects do you recommend we have to get started?
Excellent. Thank you for asking that. You know, it varies by the region that you're targeting. So, for example, if someone's a local broker and they're targeting, you know, Orlando, the Orlando area, for example, you know, the comment might be you might only need a few thousand suspects to get started. And that list could be StartUpSelling, or somebody else could help you get that list if you don't have it. And of course, you would add your clients as well and your active prospects. If you're targeting a large geography, maybe the Southeast, then it would be a better number might be 10 or 12,000. And if you're national, we have clients who have over 100,000 emails, business-to-business emails nationally. So it depends on the region and the size of your agency and, of course, the goals that you try to accomplish.
The next question that we have, I'll handle. Someone has asked about a sample lead handling process. Lead handling process can actually be very simple. The key is that they're effective and that they're followed by your sales team. So we talked a little bit about appointment setting, and an appointment setting lead handling process might be that an appointment comes in via email to your producer team, and that producer sends a calendar invitation to the prospect immediately upon receipt of that email, and the day before the appointment, that same producer sends either a reminder or a piece of collateral saying that they're looking forward to the meeting and here's some additional information, so that there's a series of touches that make that meeting more likely to stick. Talking about marketing automation and workflow, those campaigns will often drive people to your website where they'll fill out forms. If a form submission comes in, the process might be something like a designated marketing person assigns that lead to a producer who is required to call and email that prospect within 24 hours, and if they don't hear back, call and email that prospect again within 72 hours or 7 days, depending on the type of the lead. So with that, now that we're running out of time, we'll wrap up. If you'd like to contact us for a marketing automation and workflow demonstration where we walk you through a marketing automation and workflow process real time, to learn more about it, please contact me. My information is on the screen. If you have any questions or if you'd like a copy or recording of today's web seminar, feel free to contact me as well. With that, today's web seminar is now ending. We hope you all have a great day.